My father was standing in my brother's driveway in the rain, holding a cardboard box of Lachlan's things, and for the first time in my 31 years on this earth, I watched his hands shake. The foreclosure notice was taped to the front door. The BMW was already gone, repossessed 2 weeks prior, and my mother was sitting in the passenger seat of their car with her hand over her mouth, staring at the house her golden son had allegedly bought outright, the house she'd bragged about at every family gathering for 3 years, now hollowed out and dark. My parents only ever loved and adored my older brother because he worked at a big corporation, until the day reality hit them. My name's Brennett Collier, Bren to anyone who actually knows me. I'm 31, I'm a licensed electrician, and I married my wife Tierney 4 years ago in her aunt's backyard because that's what we could afford. I say that with no shame now, but there was a time when everything I had felt small, because everything Lachlan had looked enormous. Lachlan is my older brother, 3 years ahead of me, and from the moment we were kids, the roles were cast. He was the bright one, the ambitious one, the one my parents pointed to when neighbors asked how the boys were doing. He went to a state university on a partial scholarship, talked his way into a corporate sales job right out of school, and within 5 years, he was pulling down 6 figures. Or so he said. My parents ate it up. My mother, Gaynell, would mention his title at dinner parties the way some people mention the weather. Casually. Constantly. Lachlan's a regional director now. Lachlan just got back from a conference. Lachlan's company flew him first class. And then there was me. I went to trade school, became an electrician. Good at it too. Careful, detail-oriented, licensed before I was 23. But in my parents' house, electrician landed with a thud. My father, Harmon, never said anything outright cruel. He didn't have to. It was the things he didn't say. When Lachlan got promoted, there was a dinner. When I got licensed, there was a nod and a, "That's good, son." When Lachlan bought his house, that massive brick colonial with the 3-car garage, my parents drove out to see it the same weekend. When Tierney and I bought our little 2-bedroom fixer-upper, my mother said, "Well, it has potential," the way you'd compliment an ugly baby. Tierney saw it clearly from the start. Our first Thanksgiving as a married couple, we drove to my parents' house, and within 20 minutes, the Lachlan show was in full swing. His wife, Veda, was wearing a new watch Lachlan had apparently surprised her with. My mother held Veda's wrist up to the light like she was appraising a diamond. "Isn't that stunning?" Lachlan has such taste. Tierney squeezed my knee under the table. Later, loading the dishwasher, she said, "Do they know you just rewired the Dempsey building downtown? That it was a 2-month job and you managed the whole crew?" I mentioned it. "And?" My dad said, "Sounds like a lot of work," then asked Lachlan about his quarterly numbers. She set a plate down hard enough that it clinked. "It's not right, Bren. It's just how they are. That doesn't make it okay." She was right. But I'd spent so long accepting my position in the family that challenging it felt like trying to rearrange furniture that had been bolted to the floor. I think when you grow up being the second choice, you stop expecting to be chosen, and that acceptance feels like peace, but it's actually just a wound that stopped bleeding. Things continued that way for years. Every family gathering was a showcase for Lachlan's life. He'd pull up in whatever new car he was driving, Veda would be dressed like she'd walked out of a catalog, and my parents would orbit them like planets around a sun. I'd stand off to the side, help my dad with whatever grill or cooler needed moving, and keep quiet. But I started noticing things. Small things at first. Lachlan would excuse himself to take calls during dinner and come back looking tight around the eyes. Veda stopped wearing new things. They hosted less. One Easter, Lachlan showed up without her entirely. "Where's Veda?" my mother asked. "Not feeling well," Lachlan said, too quickly. I caught him in the garage later, leaning against the wall, staring at his phone. He looked exhausted. Not the kind from working hard, the kind from carrying something. "You okay?" I asked. He pocketed the phone fast. "Fine. Why?" "You don't look fine. Mind your own business, Bren." So I did. Because that was our dynamic. He performed, I observed. Nobody asked me what I saw. Meanwhile, Tierney and I were building something real. Slow, steady, unglamorous. I picked up side jobs on weekends. Ceiling fans, panel upgrades, older homes that needed full rewires. Tierney managed a small dental office and was finishing her online certification in practice management. We weren't rich, but every dollar we had was actually ours. We started fixing up our house room by room. I redid the kitchen electrical myself. Tierney painted. We ripped out old carpet on a Saturday afternoon and found hardwood floors underneath that just needed sanding. "This is going to be beautiful," she said, kneeling on the raw wood with dust in her hair. "It already is." She looked up at me. "I'm talking about the floors, Bren." "I know. I'm not." Those were the moments that kept me grounded when my parents' indifference stung. Tierney never let me forget that our life had value, even if nobody in my family bothered to notice. There was one night, maybe 2 years into our marriage, where it almost broke me. I'd just finished a massive rewiring job at an old commercial building. 2 months of crawling through walls, fixing decades of dangerous wiring, coordinating with the general contractor. The building passed inspection on the first try. My boss called it the cleanest job he'd seen in 15 years. I was proud. Really proud. I called my dad to tell him. "Hey Dad, just wanted to let you know, we finished the Hargrove building today. Passed full inspection, no flags." "Oh, that's good. Hey, did your mother tell you? Lachlan's company is sending him to some leadership retreat. All expenses paid. Some resort, I think. She's over the moon." That's great for him. We're thinking about driving up to see him before he leaves. Maybe Saturday. You and Tierney want to come? I hung up and sat in my truck in the driveway for a long time. Tierney came outside after 20 minutes, leaned against the driver's side window and said, "What'd he say?" "He told me about Lachlan's retreat." She didn't say anything. She just opened the door, took my hand, and pulled me inside. Made me a plate of leftover pasta, sat across from me while I ate. Sometimes love looks like someone refusing to let you disappear into the hurt. I've realized that some people can only measure love in things they can show off, and when you build something quiet, they mistake it for nothing. The cracks in Lachlan's world started showing wider about a year and a half ago. He missed our mother's birthday dinner, which had never happened before. My father called him and got voicemail. My mother tried 3 times. Nothing. "He's probably swamped at work," my dad said. "He's always swamped at work," I said, not meaning it the way it sounded. Or maybe meaning it exactly that way. A few weeks later, my mother called me, which was unusual in itself. She didn't call me to chat. She called me when she needed something. "Brennick, have you talked to your brother lately?" "Not really. Why?" "He's been distant, not returning calls. Your father drove by his house last Tuesday, and the lawn was overgrown. That's not like him." "Maybe he's just busy." "Something's wrong. I can feel it. Can you go check on him? He listens to you." That was almost funny. Lachlan had never once listened to me about anything. But I went because she asked, and because underneath the resentment, he was still my brother. I drove to his house on a Saturday morning. The lawn was worse than my mother had described. Patchy, unmowed, dandelions everywhere. One of the garage doors was dented like something had backed into it. I knocked for 5 minutes before Lachlan opened the door in sweatpants and a wrinkled t-shirt, unshaved, eyes bloodshot. "What are you doing here?" "Mom sent me. She's worried." "Tell her I'm fine." "Lachlan, you look like you haven't slept in a week. Where's Veda?" His jaw tightened. "Veda left 3 months ago." I stared at him. 3 months? And you didn't tell anyone? What was I supposed to say? "Hey Mom, the perfect life you've been bragging about is falling apart?" He let me inside, and that's when I saw the rest of it. The house was half empty. Most of the furniture was gone, sold, I'd find out later. Mail was stacked in piles on the kitchen counter, and not the good kind. Collection notices, past due warnings, a letter from his company's HR department. "Lachlan, what happened?" He sat down at the kitchen island, one of the few things left, and put his head in his hands. And then the whole thing came pouring out. He'd been let go from his job 8 months ago. Restructuring. His entire division was eliminated. But he didn't tell anyone. Not our parents, not me, not even Veda at first. He kept getting dressed every morning, driving to a coffee shop across town, sitting there for 8 hours, then driving home like nothing was different. He burned through savings in 3 months, started using credit cards to cover the mortgage, the car payments, the lifestyle. When Veda found out, she'd seen a statement he forgot to hide. She was furious. Not about the job loss, but about the lying. 6 months of lying to her face. She said she didn't even know who I was anymore, Lachlan told me. She said she'd married someone who trusted her and woke up next to a stranger. She'd begged him to tell the family, get help, downsize. He refused, said he'd fix it. She left when she realized he couldn't. I couldn't let them see me fail, he said. Not Mom and Dad. They've never looked at me and seen anything other than the guy who made it. If I told them I lost everything, what would I be? I'd be... He stopped. You'd be me, I said quietly. He looked up, and in his eyes I saw it, the thing neither of us had ever said out loud. The hierarchy our parents had built, the one that told him success was the only reason they loved him, and told me that my lack of it was the reason they didn't. Bren, I didn't mean... Yeah, you did. And the worst part is, you might be right. There are truths inside a family that everyone knows and nobody speaks. And when someone finally says them out loud, the silence afterward is deafening. I told him he needed to come clean. He said he couldn't face it. I told him the house was going into foreclosure regardless, and he didn't have a choice anymore. We went back and forth for 2 hours at that bare kitchen island. Let me help you, I said. How? You gonna write me a check? No, but I can help you figure out what comes next. I've been broke before, Lachlan. You haven't. There's no shame in it. Easy for you to say. It's not easy for me to say. Nothing about this is easy. You spent 10 years being the favorite, and I spent 10 years being the afterthought. But I'm still here, in your kitchen, offering to help. So maybe stop telling me what's easy for me. He went quiet after that. Really quiet. Then he nodded. The confrontation with my parents happened the following weekend. Lachlan and I drove there together. He told them everything. The job, the debt, Veda leaving, the foreclosure. My mother cried. My father sat in his recliner and stared at the wall like someone had rearranged the entire world while he wasn't looking. Why didn't you tell us? My mother kept saying. Because I didn't want to stop being the son you were proud of. That landed. Hard. My mother put both hands flat on the table and stared at them. My father rubbed his face and said very quietly, We would have helped. You know we would have helped. Would you? Lachlan asked. Or would you have looked at me the way you look at Bren? The room went dead silent. My father's eyes cut to me and then away, fast, like he'd touched something hot. My mother opened her mouth and closed it twice. I watched my parents flinch from the impact of it, and I felt something complicated, vindication and grief braided together, because Lachlan was naming the exact thing I'd felt my entire life, that their love had conditions, and hearing him say it out loud, watching them hear it, didn't feel like victory. It felt like everyone finally seeing the crack in the foundation at the same time, and realizing the house had been sinking for years. My father turned to me. Brennick, did you know? I found out a week ago, but I saw signs a long time before that. Nobody asked me what I saw. Another silence. My mother looked at me, really looked at me, and said, We haven't been fair to you. No, you haven't. I don't know how to fix that. I don't either, but acknowledging it is a start. There was no dramatic turnaround after that. No tearful group hug that rewired 30 years of favoritism. My parents helped Lachlan with what they could. He moved into their guest room temporarily while he job searched. He found work eventually, a smaller company, modest salary, a reset. My mother started calling me more. Not big conversations, just small ones. How's the house coming along? How's Tierney? Questions she'd never bothered asking before. My father came over one weekend and helped me sand those hardwood floors. We worked side by side for hours, the sander drowning out any need for conversation, sawdust coating everything. At one point he stopped, ran his hand along the grain and said, "You were right about these floors. They're beautiful under there. Just needed someone to look past the surface." He glanced at me. I held his gaze. He nodded once, slow, and went back to sanding. He didn't say much else, but he showed up. He stayed 5 hours, and when he left, he stood on the porch and looked back at the house, really looked at it, and said, "You've done a hell of a job with this place, Brennick." It was the first time he'd used my full name without it sounding like a formality. But here's the thing nobody tells you about finally being seen by people who overlooked you your whole life. It doesn't fill the hole the way you thought it would. I'd spent years imagining this moment, my parents recognizing my value, realizing Lachlan's shine was just a surface. And when it happened, I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired and sad, because I'd wanted them to love me for me, not because Lachlan's pedestal collapsed. I wanted to be chosen, not to win by default. Tierney found me on the back porch one evening, staring at the yard. "You okay?" "I got what I wanted, and it doesn't feel like I thought it would." She sat beside me. "Because you didn't want to be right. You wanted to be enough." "Yeah. You've always been enough, Bren. The only people who couldn't see it were the ones who weren't looking." Lachlan and I talk more now, carefully. There's a lot of old wreckage between us that we're picking through piece by piece. He told me once, over the phone, "I used to feel sorry for you, for your life, your job, your little house. And now I'm living in Mom's guest room, and you're the one with everything that's real." I don't need you to feel sorry for me, Lachlan. I never did. I just needed you to see me. I see you now. Good. That's a start. My parents are trying. I'll give them that. But trying isn't the same as healing, and some distances can't be closed just because everyone finally agrees they exist. I love them. I'll always show up. But there's a part of me that will never fully trust that I'm not still the backup, the one they turn to only when the first choice falls through. Tierney says that's okay. She says, "You don't need to resolve it. You just need to keep building what's yours." So that's what I do. Every morning, one wire at a time. Have you ever been the overlooked one in your family and watched the moment everyone finally realized what they'd missed? Did it feel the way you expected, or was it more complicated than that? Tell me in the comments. If this story stuck with you, leave a like, hit subscribe, and turn on that notification bell. I put a new story out every day, and having you here honestly makes all the difference.